Good afternoon. We'll call to order the May 7th policy session of the Phoenix City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Galindo Elvira.
Here.
Councilwoman Guardado.
Here.
Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Here.
Councilwoman O'Brien.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Robinson.
Here.
Councilman Waring. Vice Mayor Stark.
Here.
Mayor Gallego.
Here. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll begin with council information updates. We'll begin with Councilwoman Guardado, followed by Councilwoman Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone who joined us this last Sunday for our last Maryville Mercado of the year, and it was a huge hit to be able to celebrate Cinco de Mayo in Maryville. Our last Mercado of the year was an absolute hit, and we're so grateful for the incredible community support. The park was bustling with festive music, dancers, and great energy as our local entrepreneurs and small businesses were celebrated by the neighborhood, and it would not be a Cinco de Mayo without a piñata. It was so exciting to see Maryville come together to shop local, support our community, and enjoy the vibrant atmosphere. This is exactly why we're so passionate about activating these neighborhood park spaces and beautifying the Maryville area. We can't wait to keep the momentum going into next year. There are so many amazing things in store for the Maryville Mercado in 2025. You will not want to miss it. Thank you to the Community and Economic Development Department, Local First Arizona, Fuerza Local, Mujeres Mercado, Office of Arts and Culture, Parks and Recreation Department, and the Cartwright Elementary School District and La Campesina for their support. Una Noche Unidos at Maryville Park on May 18th. Join the Camelback Community Association for an evening of family fun with bounce houses, music, performances, food trucks, gift for kids, vendors, and raffles at Maryville Park on 51st Avenue in Campbell. There will be free dance lessons by Pedro Gonzalez and Lauren Hardcastle. Check out our next park activation and Grand Park event with our newest neighborhood group in Maryville. 27th Avenue Branding Development Survey. Where do you shop? What is your favorite neighborhood restaurant? What new business would you like to see in your community? Please tell us. My Phoenix Council District 5 office, in collaboration with the City of Phoenix Community Economic Development Department, are conducting a retail survey to learn more about the community's needs, which we hope will assist us in identifying opportunities to attract new businesses and services that are missing from the neighborhood. We invite you, your friends, and the neighbors to share your opinions on what you want to see along 27th Avenue retail corridor by completing the survey. Please go to our D5 webpage to take the survey. The survey will close on June 30th, 2024. Homestead Park Summer Splash Bash. On May 25th, get ready to celebrate the beginning of summer with us at Homestead Park, 26th Avenue in Glendale. We will have water slides, games, and fun for the neighborhood families on Saturday, May 25th. It will be Memorial Day weekend, and our office will have a table there with information to meet you. Don't miss it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go to Councilwoman Pastor and then Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. So summer is coming. Join me on May 22nd at 6 p.m. at Tortas Paquime on Van Buren for the West Side Community Coffee Chat to discuss the city's heat response effort and the Gated Alley program. Meet your neighbors and connect with the City of Phoenix resources while enjoying some delicious tortas and tacos. Congratulations to Jacqueline Edwards, the new director of the Human Service Department. Jacqueline spent the past 14 years serving Maricopa County as the director of their Human Services Department. She led the county's social service response to the pandemic, distributing $200 million in rental assistance. Please join me in welcoming her. District 4 is now officially home to the International District, the cultural hub of Phoenix. Here, 43 different languages are spoken, and almost half of all the residents speak a language other than English. Thank you, Mayor, for joining me on the launch of the International District. I also want to thank Arizona Asian Chamber of Commerce for hosting the incredible Asian Night Market, highlighting multiculturally owned establishments. So happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Here are some of the many AAPI-owned businesses in the International District. The designation of the International District could not have come at a better time. It is a privilege to highlight such amazing establishments owned by Asian Americans in Phoenix. This week is Teachers Appreciation Week. Yesterday, I went to Bostrom High School to thank all staff members for their diligence and hard work. I am a former teacher, former governing board member, and a lifelong supporter of public education. Make sure you thank a teacher this week. It's free to say thank you. I spent Cinco de Mayo with the 493 Firefighter Foundation at Buki Bichi to celebrate the release of Cerveza Valiente, a true Mexican-born cerveza created in Hermosillo by the firefighters. Proceeds from the event went to the community programs and to firefighters that are battling occupational cancer. Dive into summer with me and the Coronado Neighborhood Association. We are hosting a community pool party to kick off the summer on June 1st from 12 to 4 p.m. at the Coronado Pool. Bring the whole family, kids until 17 get in free. There will be music, snacks, prizes, and more. And once again, you may contact my office as is shown on the screen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We'll go next to Councilwoman O'Brien and then Councilmember Galindo Oliveira.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Community and Economic Development Director, Chris Mackey. On April 30th, the Arizona Association for Economic Development presented its annual Economic Development Distinguished by Excellence Awards, and Chris Mackey was honored with this award for all of the outstanding work she has done over the last 25 years of service to Arizona communities, particularly to the city of Phoenix for the last 12 to 13. So I wanted to give a quick congratulations to her. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a great first and fast couple of weeks in office, and I would like to share with you what's been going on in the community. I had the honor of attending the 11th Annual Police Officer Memorial, honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice while in the line of duty. Among them, Gilbert Chavez, a fellow Hayden Winkleman native, and a reminder of the seriousness of the work that law enforcement does on a daily basis. Next, last week I got a chance to attend the 38th Annual Outstanding Youth Leader of the Year Award ceremony, where Charles Mada of Betty Fairfax and Taylor Price of Bioscience High School, two members of District 7, were recognized. I want to extend my appreciation to State Representative Cesar Aguilar for inviting me to the Cruise to the Capitol event, highlighting the culture of cruising in the Valley and its impact on our community. Next, yesterday I joined Mayor Gallego and Dr. Hondula in spreading the word about our heat relief cooling centers across the city. If you're wondering where you can find the nearest cooling center, give 211 a call. Last week I had the pleasure of attending a great deal of events, one of them being the Si Se Vota voter registration, a nonpartisan campaign for voter registration, meeting with D7 neighborhood organizations and members of the Workers United organization, and learning about our Phoenix Library. Lastly, if you're a resident of District 7 and you're wondering how to get in touch with me, it's quite simple. Please feel free to reach out via any of the following channels. I'm here to serve you, and I value your input immensely. Whether it's a suggestion on improving our community, a problem that needs addressing, or simply a question you need answered, don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any additional updates? All right, thank you. We will go to item number 1. I will turn it over to our city manager, Jeff Barton.
Mayor, members of the council, good afternoon, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. Today, Amber and I will do a brief presentation, and I will just simply start things off before I turn it over to our esteemed Budget and Research Director, Amber Williamson. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your guidance and your leadership over the last year as we've developed and worked on developing the 24-25 fiscal year budget. As you know, we find ourselves in really peculiar times in terms of coming out of the pandemic. We did have great stewardship and great leadership on your part that put us in a position where we stand today, where we have an $80 million surplus. In any other time, we'd be celebrating and we'd be fortunate to have that surplus to be able to add and augment the services that we already provide to our residents. Unfortunately, though, as you know, the state has taken several actions that will hamper our ability to continue the services that we provide our residents, those vital services that our residents have come to depend on. Specifically in fiscal year 25-26 and 26-27, we know we are facing a fiscal cliff. We also know that we are facing shortfalls because of the actions that have been taken by our state legislature. And so today, what we have for you is a budget that not only it allows us to continue the services that we've come to know and love and that our residents have come to depend on, it also gives us a fighting chance at making sure that those services can continue into the next fiscal years after 24-25. And so I think I would just like to use a famous quote that I believe another famous Philadelphian said back in 1736, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so that's what today's budget is about. It's about protecting and preventing what we think could happen because of the roadmap that we've shown you in the past couple of weeks. And with that, I'll turn it over to Amber Williamson.
Thank you, Jeff, Mayor, members of the council, and Phoenix residents. So I'm pleased to be here today to present to you the 24-25 proposed budget. I'm going to cover a recap of our general fund budget status that was presented on February 27th, and again with the trial budget in March. I'll then go over the proposed budget for the general fund for next fiscal year. I'll talk about the steps that we took to make sure residents could provide input on the budget, and then I'll go over next steps for legal budget adoption. So to recap our general fund status for next fiscal year, our estimated resources, $2.099 billion, less our estimated cost to deliver programs and services, $2.019 billion. We are arriving at a total surplus next year of $80 million. That does represent a one-time resource. Unfortunately, as referenced by our city manager, due to the state's actions to eliminate residential rental and to lower the individual income tax to the current flat tax, we are projecting deficits. This was presented to council on February 27th, starting in fiscal 25-26, again in 26-27, baseline deficit $92 million in fiscal 26, and another deficit of $31 million estimated in fiscal 27. To demonstrate what the budget outlook would have looked like if the state didn't take action to reduce our revenue, we would have been looking at an estimated surplus next year of roughly $134 million, a manageable deficit of $6 million in fiscal 26, and a $55 million estimated surplus in 26-27. It's for these reasons that the city manager is estimating or recommending that we set aside that $80 million in reserve. That one-time surplus then could be used to preserve critical general fund programs and services for the community, as well as to be available to help balance the 25-26 budget. I also want to mention the council, as you know, you are required to adopt a balanced budget every year. We're fiscally responsible. We want to make sure that we have a sustainable budget. We also want to make sure that we have resources in the future to provide for the general obligation bond projects that the voters approved last November to open new fire stations and parks and libraries and community centers. We know it's a priority of the council to make sure we do offer residents many opportunities to provide their feedback on the budget. We did that through 11 community budget hearings held from April 2nd through the 16th across the city of Phoenix, as well as residents contacted Budget and Research directly. They used the Fund Phoenix tool as well. Overall, we saw support for the proposed budget. We know residents want us to preserve existing services, but we did hear from residents who want more service. They definitely don't want less service. We heard some major themes, including more funding for eviction legal assistance, funding for water drinking fountains, services for the library, more resources for the fire department, funding for affordable housing to address homelessness, as well as improvements for street and bike infrastructure. In total, 359 comments from 172 residents. Some residents did provide more than one comment on the same item. Included in your council report today and available online for residents is more information about how city departments are using existing resources to address some of these areas. We know also as we look forward, if we have additional general fund resources in the future, we could bring back to council opportunities to maybe provide additional resources to these areas. We are asking council for next fiscal year's budget to approve converting existing budgeted resources to add 30 critical positions in a number of different departments. Again, no additional funds are needed. This has already been accounted for in the proposed budget that's presented to you today. This really primarily represents converting existing temporary positions to ongoing status for departments such as communications, neighborhood services, city council, finance, public works, police, and planning and development. And more detail on those positions is included in your council report. Next steps for our legal budget adoption process, we'll come back on May 21st for action. That's the budget decisions. We need you to make those decisions so we can move on to our legal budget adoption process. May 29th would be tentative adoption. June 12th would be final budget adoption, and then July 1st is property tax levy adoption. And with that, we can answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Councilmember questions? Councilwoman Pastor?
I have a question. In this budget, I understand we're going to hold the 80 million, where I believe that some of the savings came from, I don't know what your formula is, whatever your formula is, and also from savings from vacancies. I have a concern, or I want to know that the crisis response team is going to be filled, because there are several positions in there, and that they will continue to be filled as we go through this process.
Thank you for the question, Councilwoman Pastor, Mayor, and members of the council. That's correct. They're free to fill those vacant positions. We do every year budget an amount for vacant positions. We simply have attrition, so we want to account for that savings in the budget, but no department, including that program, is prevented from filling any of their vacant positions.
Okay, I just want it on the record.
Absolutely.
To make sure that they're, that those positions are critical, and they're critical to the community, and it helps us also with our Office of Homeless Solutions and other impacts that happen within the community. I just know that they had a number of vacancies, and I was worried about that, so thank you for verifying.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and thank you to Government Affairs, which continues to work to talk to the state of Arizona about the very negative impacts of these steep and rapid cuts in revenue. Any additional comments before we go to public comment? All right. We will begin with Eric Nelson, followed by Patrick Daniel.
Hello, my name is Eric. Quick housekeeping note before I get to the budget. I want to apologize to the last officer that arrested me. He had no way of knowing I was going to catch tuberculosis at LBJ, so I'm sorry. I was just feeling some type of way about having to go to central booking within an hour of being in central booking. Anyway, with that said, about the budget, I'm sorry to hear that the state of Arizona is robbing you guys. I know you guys worked really hard for that money. So I'm just sorry, that's really unfortunate news. I didn't know that. What I came to speak about is how leadership translates to financial success. Specifically, people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk aren't going to keep giving you guys money without strong leadership, because they didn't know their investment's safe. It's just the way greedy people are. The other thing I want to say about strong leadership is that I heard through the grapevine that, I'm not sure this is true or not, like I said, maybe this is a rumor, but I heard through the grapevine that Mayor Kay Gallego is not running for re-election, and it makes sense, seeing as how there's nowhere for her to go but up. I know the Democratic Party could probably use her in a more competitive race, but if I were her, I would just run for Grijalva's seat, because it'd be the easiest one to get. And then finally, I just want to point out that true leadership is hard to come by, but there's some people in this room who exemplify an even higher level of leadership that I like to refer to as presidential leadership. People like Jeff Barton, the mayor, and Keisha Hodge Washington, they do more of a presidential job of leadership, and the difference is true leadership is the captain going down with the ship. That's expected. A presidential version of leadership is the crew going down with the captain. That's called Greg Carnegie. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And just a reminder, if folks could keep their testimony on the subject of the budget. Next, we have Patrick followed by Luke.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. My name is Patrick Director. I'm speaking today in my capacity as Director of Advocacy for Phoenix Community Alliance on behalf of our Board of Directors, as well as our nearly 350 members. We understand that the City of Phoenix finds itself in a unprecedented position, not of its own making, with this year's budget. The budget as it stands right now provides the best chance forward, the best options forward to deliver services, maintain services for a city that's growing rapidly. On behalf of our advocacy committees, we ask that no reductions be made to funding for Office of Homeless Solutions. This is an office that in a very short time has demonstrated its worth and demonstrated its capacity to help people out of homelessness. We also ask that no reductions be made to grants and public art maintenance. The humanities are what truly make this city a livable place for everybody that lives, works, and plays here. So please no cuts to those programs. We also ask that that funding be maintained for any program that promotes active transportation, multimodal transportation in a downtown that's growing rapidly. Once again, the option to have other means of transit for people who wish to do so is becoming more and more important. Finally, we ask that no reductions be made to staff at planning and development. Our city is growing rapidly. As Phoenix Community Alliance, we represent an area that's primarily in downtown, and it's obvious that these services are needed as we grow. And then finally, in a city that is fairly young by many standards, we ask that no reductions be made to any programs that provide for historic preservation. We have very few historic assets left in some parts of the city, and we must do all we can to maintain. And finally, should additional resources be available, we do ask that increases in staffing at the housing department, which are dedicated to providing affordable housing stock, be considered. So once again, thank you for the work that's been put into this budget, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Luke, followed by Carrie.
Good afternoon, members of council. My name is Luke. I am a member of District 7. I am here today in opposition to this budget. To be frank, it's a disappointment. We've listened for the last 2 months as the city manager has told us that we don't have any money, a deficit is coming, we have to set aside $80 million, we have to keep this money so that we can be safe as a city. And yet we turn around and we found $27 million more in this budget to give to the police than no one was asking for. And that money is ultimately money that comes from us, right? It comes from the members of this community that need that money to be healthy, to be safe, but it's not going to us. It's not going to keep us safe. It's not going to keep us healthy. It's not going to protect us. It's going to the police. I sat in community hearings with members of this council and watched as folks talked about needing emergency relief for heat, talked about needing support for eviction. The firefighters even were there talking about how horrible their response time is, and yet this budget took money away from them. Like, this budget is disappointing. I would like to actually speak to one specific thing. Maybe it's an opportunity that you all have to do something good in this budget. There are 5 water stations identified as being expanded, and expanded hours at a few locations. 5 water stations in the 5th largest city in the country in record heat. I mean, that's a joke, y'all. Like, we can only find money for 5 water stations, and we can only expand our hours in places in 4 select locations. None of that heat relief is on the west side. That's your district, Council Member Galindo Elvira. That's your district, Laura Pastor. That's your district, Council Member Guardado. Please invest in the people of this city and stop giving our money to the police.
Carrie is next, Guadalupe Proxima.
Hello. My My name is Carrie, and I live in District 4. Oh, good afternoon, council people. I've never been in one of these before. But I am a permanently disabled single mom who has faced homelessness 4 times. And what did not help me was more millions going to police to act against our needs. What would have helped me, since I'm also reliant on public transportation, is water. Also, it would have been nice to know what my rights were if I was facing eviction, or when I'm a tenant for a landlord that does not provide for me. I don't have access to legal representation. Our needs are not being taken care of. I think that there would be a whole lot less crime, or actually it's kind of a fact that there's going to be less crime and we're going to be safer if our needs are met. And we don't need a military to act against us. We need more water stations. We need access to housing. We need access to know how to defend ourselves and how to provide for ourselves. We can't provide for our needs and with the state of our current city. Thank you. I'm in opposition to the way you're spending our taxes, our money. I don't have a lot of money, but I would like it to be used to help us.
Thank you. Guadalupe, and then Vidi.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Guadalupe, soy del Distrito 7. Yo quiero hablar del presupuesto de la ciudad. Semanas atrás se dijo de los 80 millones de dólares del Fondo General para el próximo año, que ese dinero se iba a usar para el próximo año. La ciudad nos ha dicho que tiene que retener ese dinero y no puede financiar más en servicios en nuestras comunidades. Más sin embargo,
Señora, pause, por favor.
Ok.
Thank you,
Más
Mayor.
sin embargo,
Señora, puede dice.
Si quieres después, ella lo tiene escrito.
Mayor, Ms. Hernandez is asking if the resident can read her whole statement.
And Mario, can you, is that work for you?
It will, Mayor, once I finish interpreting the first part of it, and then she can continue.
Okay, if that works for you, that works. Por favor.
Pausa un momento, señora. Le voy a interpretar lo que acaba de decir. Good afternoon. My name is Guadalupe, and I'm from District 7. And I want to talk about the budget, the city budget from weeks ago. It was said that there was $80 million in the general fund. And for the following year, we asked that money be used. Well, it was said that it was going to be used next year, but the city hasn't told us yet that they're going to be keeping that money, and they can't finalize the financing and the different services in our communities. Prosiga, señora.
más sin embargo, la ciudad añadió 25 millones del Fondo General a la policía. La ciudad encontró fondos especiales adicionales para más vivienda y más fuentes de agua y alivio del calor para fuentes de agua y apoyo para ayudar el calor no son suficientes. La ciudad no destinó más dinero para apoyo legal a las personas que enfrentan desalojos. Una vez más nos damos cuenta que la ciudad está dando prioridad a la policía sobre la seguridad y el cuidado de nuestras comunidades. Tenemos 4 demandas. Dejen de darle el dinero a la policía de nuestras comunidades. Invertir los 27 millones encontrados para apoyo a nuestras comunidades. 5 fuentes de agua nuevas y a horarios limpios del calor en solo unos pocos lugares no son suficientes para los parques. Cada edificio de la ciudad debe de tener su fuente de agua y todos tener un horario hasta las 10. Ampliar y financiar permanentemente el programa de servicios legales de desalojo de emergencia para personas que enfrentan desalojo o enfrenten violaciones de derechos de los inquilinos. Gracias.
Aquí está si quieres.
Está bien, that's fine, Viri. But yet, in the city added $25 million to the general fund, to the police. The city found these funds, these special funds, additional ones, for more housing and for more, or they should be finding these funds for more housing, for more water and heat relief for these fountains, these water fountains. The heat is going to be tremendous. The city has no destiny, or hasn't destined this money for legal help either. The help that these people need that are facing eviction once again. And we're finding out that the city is giving priority to the police regarding security and safety to our communities, but yet we have 4 demands. Stop giving money to the police and give it to our communities. Invest $27 million of this that was found to support our communities. 5 water fountains, new ones. And also, we feel that there isn't sufficient water fountains in our parks. So every building in the city should have a water fountain, an adequate one. And finance permanently these programs for the legal services that for the people that are being evicted, and creating this fund for these people that are facing eviction or are facing violations of their rights as tenants. Thank you.
Thank you. Vidi is next. Blanca Proxima.
Okay, just for interpretation, people are going to share just a little bit later and then translate and then break and then translate. So I gave them that instruction. So y'all. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Vidi. It is really frustrating to hear again that there is no money and that we need to get ready. I remember year after year coming where there was empty police positions that have been vacant for over 5 years, and we kept funding them. We kept giving that money. We didn't move those to necessary resources, and there was always money. Now there's $27 million added to the police general fund, to the police from the general fund. General fund, this is our money, right? This is where our funds are going. This is what we get to fight for, and at times it feels like we're fighting for crumbs. But yet here we found $27 million from general funds, again, to go to the police department. That is almost $1 billion police department that hasn't had an impact into what people are saying is safety. When are we going to start funding solutions? When are we going to start addressing the root causes of issues? When are we going to support people? Right now, one of the biggest, you have a pilot program for the eviction. That program needs to grow. That program needs to be invested in. There are a lot of members, of our members, but also across your districts that are coming to us to seek legal support because their rights are being violated. We need to see an investment in this because we're going to have is more people that are unsheltered, and then what are we going to respond to that is with more police. That is always your response, is more police. We don't need more police. We need to solve the issues. We need to solve the problems. We need to actually get to the root causes. And so this budget, right, is a disappointment because it, again, is moving our money, our taxpayer dollars, back into things that people are not asking for, back to policing. We also need y'all to fight for these water stations, these heat reliefs, to have more in West Phoenix. You have displaced people from downtown. You're moving people out, and they're going into our communities, and we need to see investment in these resources in West Phoenix.
Thank you. Blanca y Angelina.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Blanca. Le estoy dando chance para que me traduzca, ¿eh? Okay. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Blanca.
Good afternoon, my name is Blanca.
Soy del Distrito 7.
and I pertain to District 7.
Más de 20 años viviendo en esa área.
I've been living over 20 years in that area.
Y voy a tomar muy en serio la recomendación de ahorita nuestro representante de ir a buscarlo para que nos apoye en esa área del sur de Phoenix.
And I'm going to take into consideration, serious consideration, the recommendation of, from our representative, what he just said, as far as going out and seeking him out so that he can support us in the south area.
Siempre lo he pensado, lo he dicho y lo he manifestado en mi comunidad.
I've always thought about it. I've always mentioned it. I've manifested it in our community.
Cuando tenemos conciencia, intención y acción,
When we have awareness, intention and action,
podemos lograr muchísimas cosas
we can accomplish many things
dentro de las mismas necesidades que la necesidad de mi comunidad tiene.
within the same needs of the needs that what our community has.
Y la verdad que sí es muy frustrante lo que se escucha sobre un presupuesto, sobre dinero que debería emplearse verdaderamente en la comunidad.
In all honesty, it's very frustrating that we're hearing regarding this budget, about the monies that should be employed. They should be employed within the community.
Increíble que estoy escuchando, 80 millones, se agregaron 27 millones más a la policía.
It's incredible. I'm hearing here that there's $80 million, and of that, 27 million was added for the police.
¿Saben lo que yo haría con 27 millones en la comunidad?
Do you know what I would do with 27 million in the community?
Ayudaría a mi comunidad a florecer y ustedes también se verían beneficiados.
I would help my community to flourish, and you guys also would be benefiting from it as well.
Violencia genera más violencia.
Violence creates more violence.
Necesitamos jóvenes saludables que vivan mejor.
We need more youth for them, healthy youth, for them to live a good life.
Si creemos más violencia, estaremos atrayendo a nuestros jóvenes a las drogas, a la prostitución y la verdad, por experiencia propia, la experiencia, la policía no está ayudando en nada, absolutamente.
If we're creating more violence, then we're attracting our kids to drugs and prostitution. And honestly, by my own experience, this experience with the police is not really helping at all.
¿Existe una crisis de vivienda? Claro que sí, porque nuestra familia los están viviendo.
Is there a living crisis or living crisis? Yes, of course, because our families, they are seeing it.
Necesitamos más parques saludables con agua.
We need more parks, healthy ones with water.
Y 5 estaciones de agua, bueno, pues dígame la dirección para poder caminar y a tomar agua, porque para todos los parques, ¿dónde están?
5 water stations, well, tell me where that address would be at so I can go and walk, so I can drink water there for all the parks in our city.
Y gracias. Y por último, si para el año que entra necesitan ayuda para contabilidad, yo me ofrezco, les puedo ayudar a hacer bien la contabilidad para que la comunidad se vea beneficiada. ¿Está bien? Gracias por su atención.
Lastly, next year, if you do need somebody in accounting, I offer myself to help out so that we can help the community and so that the community would benefit for it. Is that okay? Thank you for your attention.
Angelina, followed by Lowe.
Ok, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Angelina y yo estoy aquí. Yo vivo en el Distrito 7 y estoy aquí representando la comunidad. Y yo quiero que todos me miren, porque yo sé que todos están agachados mirando la computadora. Quiero que me miren. Quiero que sepan que cada vez...
Hello, my name is Angelina, and I'm here. I live in District 7, and I'm here representing the community. And I want for all of you to look at me. I know you're all looking down, looking at your computers, but I want you to look at me. I want you to know.
Yo quiero saber si ustedes se sienten orgullosos del puesto que están ocupando, porque creo que la comunidad no.
I want to know if you guys feel proud of the position that you guys are holding, because I don't think that the community is proud of you.
Ya que con sus decisiones que tomaron con el presupuesto que están tomando, sabemos que va a haber más muertes por calor.
Because we know that your decisions that you took regarding the budget and the decisions that you are taking, we know that there's going to be more deaths because of the heat.
También sabemos que va a haber más familias desalojadas, niños, madres, muchas familias que van a ser desalojadas porque no se tomó en cuenta.
And we also know that there's going to be more and more families that are homeless, kids, mothers, many families that are going to be evicted because they weren't taken into consideration.
También sabemos que va a haber más suicidios, más problemas en los hogares porque no se tomó en cuenta la ayuda de salud mental.
We also know that there's going to be more suicides, more problems in households because they weren't taken into consideration because of their mental health.
Pero sí sabemos que va a haber más policía, como si eso nos salvara la vida.
But what we do know is that there are going to be more cops, as if that's really going to save our lives.
Yo nomás quiero que sepan
All I want you to know
que cada vez que una persona muera de deshidratación porque 5 fuentes de agua para este lugar es una burla. Sinceramente, para mí es una burla.
And I want to know that each time somebody dies because they get dehydrated because there wasn't these 5 fountains, water fountains, then it really be a slap in the face. Honestly, it would be a slap in the face.
Quiero que sepan que cada vez que una familia duerma en la calle porque no tuvo para pagar su renta y porque no tuvo ninguna ayuda legal para que fuera protegida, también va a ser su responsabilidad de sus decisiones.
And I also want you to know that each family that would be sleeping out in the streets because they didn't have the money to pay their rent, because they didn't receive any help or any legal help so that they can be protected, it's going to be your responsibility because of your new decisions.
Yo no sé si ustedes se sienten bien con la decisión que tomaron, pero yo como ciudadana de este país me siento decepcionada.
I don't know if you feel good with your decision that you took, but as a citizen from this country, I feel very disillusioned.
Se supone que en este país no existe la injusticia.
You would assume that in this country there is no injustice.
Pero se está mirando. Es injusto.
But we're seeing it. It's unfair.
Es injusto que la policía pueda tener 27 millones y no tengamos agua. Mueran de sed las personas en la calle.
It's unfair that the police get 27 million and we don't have water and people are dying out there in the streets.
Muchas gracias por su atención.
Thank you for your attention.
Lowe is next. Y Estela.
Hello, my name is Lo Svitak. I live in Tempe, but I am frequently in Phoenix, and I also feel that I should have a say because the city of Phoenix is really a model for the entirety of Arizona. I completely agree with what people have been saying previously, that we need to invest in the community. This looks like homelessness solutions, public transport, protecting arts and history, affordable housing, and more specifically, we need to fund heat relief and eviction support. Because as we all know, at least within this community, the police are not helping anybody. The sheer amount of money, 27 million, added to the billion that they already have, doesn't make any sense when what we really need are these community solutions. It's been shown all over the country that police are really just causing more violence. It's a never-ending cycle. So if we know that this isn't a proper solution, I don't understand why this money isn't going to solutions that we know actually work. For example, water. This should be a basic human right. The access to police is not a basic human right, but access to housing, access to water, access to just basic protections, these should be obvious. These should be for everyone. So specifically, we demand to stop giving the police the money that our communities actually need, invest this new $27 million that was found for police into the general fund to support our actual communities, and then increased water stations, expanded heat relief, and funding the emergency eviction legal services, as opposed to the very few cooling centers and water stations that we already have. So yes, we reject the additional 27 that are going to the police, and we support actual community funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Estela, and then Isabel.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Estela y vivo en el Distrito 5.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Estela, and I live in District 5.
Yo solo quiero decir, no sé cuántos años tengan que pasar para que ustedes dejen de ignorarnos.
All I want to say is that I don't know how many years need to go by before you begin or before you stop ignoring us.
También no venimos a pedirles nada, venimos a exigirles porque es nuestro dinero. Cada año suben las cosas que compramos, las cosas que usamos, y cada año suben y suben y suben y pagamos impuestos y nunca tienen dinero ustedes.
And also, we're not here to request anything from you. We're here to demand, because it's our money. Each year, things go up and up. The things that we buy, things that we use, every year, everything's just going up every year. And we pay our taxes, and you guys never have the money.
Trabajamos para que ustedes sepan las necesidades de nuestra comunidad. Trabajamos siempre hablando con la comunidad, cosa que ustedes no hacen. Ustedes hablan con la comunidad solamente cuando necesitan el voto, pero nosotros lo hacemos año tras año tras año. Vamos puerta y puerta, algo que tampoco hacen, ¿verdad? Porque mandan a sus trabajadores. Betty Guardado del Distrito 5, su gente estuvo cerca de mi casa pidiendo firmas para poner en las partes de atrás fence. Ella no hace el trabajo que hacemos nosotros. Nosotros como comunidad vamos puerta a puerta para buscar las necesidades de las personas. No tenemos gente para pagar y que haga esto. Lo hacemos propio, voluntario.
Señora, le voy a preguntar, dijo usted algo de que piden firmas y ponen en las partes de atrás, ¿qué?
Sí, ponen los fence para que no entren la gente sin hogar.
¿Fence?
Sí, los cercos.
Okay, muy bien, gracias. And so we're working so that you can know as far as the needs that our community has, and we're always talking to the community about things that you guys are not doing. We're talking to the community. You only talk to the community when you need the vote. But us, we do it year after year, and we go from door to door, something that also you're not doing, because you're sending your workers, like, for example, well, let's say Councilwoman Guardado in District 5, her people, they were close to my house asking for signatures and putting them up behind the putting them in parts behind the fence. She didn't work. And Mayor, the interpreter doesn't want to watch this part here, so I'm going to ask for a repetition of that part. Usted dijo que Betty Guardado, ¿qué dijo en cuanto a Betty Guardado?
¿Perdón?
¿Qué dijo usted en cuanto a Betty Guardado?
Oh, ella tiene sus trabajadores, ¿verdad? A ellos les pagan por andar buscando firmas para que nosotros firmemos y tengamos cosas en la comunidad, pero nosotros lo hacemos voluntariamente. Nosotros vamos a la comunidad a ver cuáles son sus necesidades.
She pays her workers. She's out looking for signatures so that we can sign and so that we can get things in the community. But us, we do it voluntarily. We go out and we go out and seek out the different needs that there are.
Tenemos 3 demandas con ustedes, que es nada más poner agua en los parques, fuera de edificios de la ciudad de Phoenix. Queremos también viviendas accesibles porque hay mucha gente viviendo afuera en las calles. Los homeless no están ahí nada más porque quieren estar ahí. Otra cosa, queremos que hagan un servicio para las personas que son desalojadas. Hay mucha gente que no tiene dinero para pagar sus viviendas y eso es lo que necesitamos y no 27 millones más a la policía, por favor. Ese dinero sí lo pudieran encontrar y no encuentran cómo ayudar a la comunidad. Entonces, ¿para qué están sentados ahí? Gracias.
And we have 3 demands with you. And that's all. Install these water fountains outside the buildings, outside the parks, outside the buildings. And we want accessible living because there's lots of people that are living out on the streets. These people, they're not out there just because they want to. And another thing, we also want there to be a service for people that are evicted. There's lots of people that don't have money to pay for their living and their expenses, and so that's why we need, and that's why we don't need the $97 million to the police. And please, that money that if you can find it and find out how you can help out the community, because in any other case, why would you be sitting there?
Thank you. Isabel, followed by Hector.
I'm here to express, like my fellow community members, my disappointment and frustration at this proposed budget. The city is proposing to increase the amount of funding to police from the general fund, which is unrestricted taxpayer dollars, by $27 million, instead of prioritizing the needs and demands of community members. It was good to see investment in more affordable housing and 5 water stations, and also that is not enough. Phoenix is one of the biggest cities in the country, and 5 additional water stations is not enough. It's a joke. When we told community members, they laughed, especially when considering that unsheltered folks have been displaced and are being pushed out into West and South Phoenix, where it doesn't seem like those fountains are even going to be located. We also don't see any permanent funding for the emergency eviction legal services program that many people asked for to legally support tenants whose rights are being violated. Instead of allocating $27 million more to the police, you can use that money to sufficiently fund water stations and heat relief throughout the city, and to provide legal support to prevent evictions and keep people housed and safe from the heat. Stop giving our tax dollars to police. Invest it back into us, into our neighborhoods, to address root causes and meet people's immediate needs.
Hector next, followed by Ben.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Hector Jaramillo. My family and I work in Phoenix. We shop and live in much of our lives in Phoenix, and I'm deeply troubled by the recent budget allocation. Despite a claimed deficit, the city managed to find an additional $27 million into the police, which could be better used for crucial community services. This move prioritizes policing over the safety and well-being of our communities. I reject this decision and urge the council to redirect the $27 million toward initiatives benefiting our communities. Specifically, I call for expanding access to drinking fountains and extending heat relief hours until 10 p.m. citywide during the summer. Furthermore, it's urgent to expand and permanently fund the Emergency Eviction Legal Services Program. Many residents face eviction threats amid rising housing costs and economic instability, things we are all feeling the impact of today. I also want to highlight a personal story. My partner, a preschool teacher, had her class shut down due to funds being cut from her school. This is a real this is a real tangible impact of our budget decision negatively impacting our community's children, and yet we can find 27 million more for police. Our communities deserve investments prioritizing real safety, community investment, and housing security, and I hope we can allocate resources to policies that meet the genuine needs of our residents to uphold equity and justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben is next, followed by Luz.
Hi, my name is Ben. I live in District 7. I'm here today in opposition to the city budget. At first glance, I had a bit of hope looking at this year's budget. In a lot of ways, it feels like y'all have been listening to what community members have been telling you we need for the past few years, and that really matters for our everyday quality of life. What I cannot understand, though, is this budget increase for the police department. Maybe some folks are looking at it and saying it's only $2.4 million, but y'all, they were under budget by $40 million last year. In what world does it make sense to increase a department budget that was under budget by $40 million? In fact, for the past 15 years, they have been under budget on average over $17 million per year. In that time, the annual police budget has grown over $275 million. And not only is the proposal to grow that budget, the plan is to increase their allocation of the general fund budget dollars by $27 million. Doubling down on criminalization and incarceration as a strategy for public safety is kind of your thing, so I honestly wasn't that surprised. But what really blew my mind about this was that the increase for police is happening at the same time the fire department budget is being decreased. I don't know what y'all were doing during the community budget hearings, but what I saw was dozens of firefighters coming in and saying, we are in a crisis. It's cool that there's bond money for more fire stations, that's very important, but what I heard the fire department saying is that we are stretched too thin. How could y'all possibly justify cutting their budget? I grew up in a town with a volunteer fire department. I was in a house fire as a kid. Thankfully, everyone was okay, but that house and all the meaningful belongings never stood a chance. So how do I now live in a city with a $2 billion general fund that can shuffle money to find $27 million for police, but continues to set its fire department and its residents up for failure? This is another clear example of prioritizing the police budget over resources that actually make our neighborhoods healthy and safe. We need you all to address issues at the root and stop using police as a way to try and disappear the humans you see as problems. We're here today to ask you for more permanent supportive housing units and to find a permanent funding source for legal assistance for renters. We need cool water access in all of our parks and other public spaces. Rather than using the $27 million in general funds for police, spend it on resources that are going to keep people alive. Thank you.
Thank you. Luz is next, followed by Proxima Berta. Luz? Okay.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Luz y vengo a pedir ayuda para la comunidad, más viviendas. Vivo yo en una comunidad de trailers y pues estamos pasando por una crisis de mucha exigencia y mucho estrés. Entonces, yo quisiera... Pues no me siento segura en ese lugar. Yo pienso que en cualquier momento voy a perder mi traila. Yo ya perdí una traila y estoy viviendo en la traila de mi hija, pero la manager siempre busca pretextos para sacarnos, desalojarnos.
¿Puede pausar, señora? Gracias. Good afternoon. My name is Luz, and I'm here to ask for help for the community. We're asking for there to be more housing. I live in a community, in a trailer park community, and so we're asking, or we're going through, currently through a crisis. There's lots of demand, and we're going through many things and lots of stress. And so then I would like to express that I don't feel safe in that place. I think that at any given moment, I'm going to lose my trailer. I already lost one trailer, and I'm currently in my daughter's trailer. But the manager is constantly looking for excuses to kick us out and to evict us.
Y y cada día es más difícil vivir ahí y pues no puede ser un éxito y nadie podemos vivir con presión, ni las personas más exitosas pueden vivir con presión. Yo tengo un trabajo, soy mamá de 4 hijos y tengo tareas del hogar, del trabajo, y cuando llego a mi casa, haz de cuenta que no puedo dormir, tengo estrés, y el día primero me llevé una sorpresa muy grande, que en mi aplicación del teléfono quise pagar mi renta y estaba bloqueada. Y empecé a hincharme mi cuerpo y fui al hospital y estaban manifestando un derrame cerebral. Y estuve internada en el hospital y yo pienso que eso ya no es vida. Y tengo abogada por 4 meses, pero no me ha resuelto nada en esos 4 meses. Soy del Distrito 7 y yo sé, señor Galindo, que usted es nuevo en el Distrito 7 y le pido el apoyo para mi familia, para la comunidad. Y uno como padre, como madre, hasta el último suspiro hace por los hijos y para dar una mejor calidad de vida. Y toda esta semana no he podido asistir a mi trabajo, siento mis ojos muy inflamados, mi cuerpo adolorido y esta señora no baja la guardia. Ella me exige, me manda muchas cartas, yo se las doy y así estoy manejando mucho estrés y yo me siento amenazada. Estoy tomando una decisión.
Gracias.
And so it's very hard living there, and I just can't. I can't be successful, and we're all living with this pressure, and we're people that want to be successful, but we're living with all this pressure. I have a job. I'm a mother of 4, and I have my housework that I do as a housewife, and when I get home, let's just say that I just can't sleep. I'm so stressed, and on the 1st of this month, I was surprised. I got a very big surprise that on my app, on my telephone, I tried to pay my rent, and I was blocked out. So then I started looking what's going on, and I couldn't handle it. I ended up in a hospital. I had a brain hemorrhage, and so I was hospitalized, and that's just not a life. I do have an attorney for 4 months, but that attorney has not resolved anything. And during those 4 months, and by the way, I'm from District 7, and I know that Mr. Galindo, he's new in this district, and I ask for your support for me, for my family, for the community. And as a father, as a mother, till our last breath for our kids, and to give a better quality of life for them. All this week, I haven't been able to attend work. I feel like my eyes, they're very swollen, my body hurts all over, and this lady, she just doesn't let her guard down. She's very demanding. She's sending me lots of letters, and I just have to put up with that, the stress. I feel so threatened by her, and that's all I want to say.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Vitra.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Berta. Yo también estoy aquí porque estoy en contra de lo que están haciendo con los 27 millones que se le dieron a la policía. Creo que ustedes no nos escucharon en las juntas comunitarias donde la comunidad estuvo participando, que se estuvo hablando mucho sobre las viviendas, ¿verdad? Sobre los hogares que la gente necesita. Hay familias aquí que tienen miedo de venir a expresar lo que están viviendo, tienen miedo de vivir donde están, porque la policía, al igual, ¿verdad?, los amenazan con que no hagan esto, no hagan lo otro, porque les vamos a echar la policía.
¿Puede
Y la
pausar, señora?
Perdón.
Gracias. Hello, my name is Berta, and I'm also here because I'm against what you're doing with the $27 million that was given to the police. I think that you're not listening in the meetings, the community meetings, where the community was there present and participating. We were talking about housing, right? Regarding our homes, where we have our families, that they're living in fear. They're in fear to express what they're living. They're in fear of where they're living at because the police, likewise, they're threatening that they're not going to do anything. Or they're, the other thing is because we're gonna, the fact that we call the police and, diga señora.
Sí, la policía también parece que está de acuerdo con los manejadores de los dueños de casas, porque es lo que llegan a hacer, a desalojar a la gente en vez de ayudarnos. Ellos no nos están protegiendo, ellos no nos están dando seguridad.
I feel the police also, they're in agreement with the managers of these different homes because they just go out and they want to evict you. They want to evict the people instead of helping us. They're not protecting us, and well, I'm here asking for security.
Nada más juzgamos a las personas que están en la calle porque están viviendo en las calles, pero ustedes no saben cómo terminaron viviendo en las calles.
We're only judging people that are out in the streets because they're living out in the streets, but you don't know how is it that these people ended up out in the streets.
Y el por qué terminaron en las calles. Tengo amigas ahorita que acaban de ser desalojadas de sus hogares y están terminando en las calles. No les alcanza para pagar una renta. Las rentas están muy altas.
And why they ended up in the streets. I currently have friends right now that they just got evicted from their homes, and they're ending up out in the streets. They don't have enough to pay for rent. Rent is so expensive nowadays.
Así es que la policía no está haciendo su trabajo. Yo traigo aquí ahorita están los niños, ¿verdad? Y yo por ellos voy a seguir aquí luchando, porque el día de mañana yo no quiero que las personas que dicen que nos mantienen seguros, que es la policía, eso no es cierto. Un día me los lleguen a matar nomás por el color de su piel o porque ellos dijeron que temían por su vida.
And so the police are not doing their job. I have here kids, right? And so for them, I'm going to continue fighting because come tomorrow, I don't want that anybody would say that they're supporting us and we just don't feel safe with the police. I just don't want them to end up killed someday because of the color of their skin or because they were in fear for their lives.
Ok, gracias. Así es que exijo que se ponga un programa con esos 27 mil millones que le dieron a la policía, porque es nuestro dinero y tenemos el derecho de decidir a dónde va a ir.
And so I ask, and I thank you, and I ask that these $27 million that you gave the police, that's our money, and we have a right to decide. We have a right where it goes.
Gloria, followed by Justina.
Es Gloria y soy del Distrito 7. Me siento sorprendida con esta situación que hemos estado tocando puertas a la comunidad para decirles de las necesidades que ellos tienen y no se han tomado en cuenta. ¿Cómo es posible que quieran dar ese dinero a la policía cuando mi hija terminó en la calle porque no había ayuda legal para que no la sacaran de su hogar con 5 hijos? Ella terminó en las calles, en las drogas, por todo ese estrés de que ya no pudo con esa situación.
¿Puede
Sí.
pausar, señora?
Ay, perdón.
Gracias. Hello, my name is Gloria. I'm from District 7, and I'm very surprised with this situation that we've been touching upon, where we've been knocking doors out in the community to tell them about the needs that, talking about the needs that they have. And these things are not being taken into account. They haven't been taken in account because how is it possible that you want to give that money to the police when my daughter, she ended up out in the streets because there wasn't any help, any legal help. So they kicked her out to the street with her 5 kids. She ended up out in the streets and on drugs because of all that stress that she wasn't able to put up with because of that situation.
Considero que no estamos pidiendo demasiado para lo que estamos pidiendo es agua para las personas que andan en las calles. Están diciendo que solamente hay 5 para nuestro distrito. No he visto ninguno. No he visto ningún lugar que hayan puesto que tengan las personas un lugar que vayan a tomar el agua. Los parques están inhabitables. Los baños, no puedes ir a un baño porque están horribles.
And I also want to say, we're not asking for all that much. What we are asking for is water for people that are out in the streets, and they're saying that there's only 5 for our district. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen anywhere where they put where they have these places for the people to benefit water from, and so they need a place where they can drink water. The parks are inhabitable. The restrooms, you just go to the restroom and they're just in horrible condition.
Por favor, estamos en Arizona, en un lugar súper caliente. Mucha gente anda en las calles. Mucha gente necesita de ese pedido que nosotros como comunidad y como organización estamos pidiendo.
And please, we're in Arizona. It's extremely hot. There's lots of people that are out in the streets. A lot of people, they need that. What we're requesting as a community, as an organization, we're here asking and requesting that.
Les ruego que reconsideren ese pedido que estamos haciendo. Gracias.
And I beg that you tend to that request that we're extending out. Thank you.
Hostina, followed by Arnab.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Justina Hernández y voy a ser bien directa con todas las 9 personas concejales que tengan compasión de la comunidad. Todos esos millones que le dan a los policías, ¿para qué? ¿Por qué? O tal vez los van a ocupar para comprar estrellas, para festejar con honores a los policías que matan a nuestras personas. Y quiero que por favor escuchen a toda la comunidad. Esos millones que le dan a ellos se los pueden repartir a toda esta comunidad porque ellos tienen muchas necesidades. Es todo lo que yo tengo que decirles.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Justina Hernandez, and I'm going to be very direct with you, all 9 of you, council people. I'm asking that you be compassionate with the community. All those millions of dollars that you give to the police because, or maybe you're going to use it to buy all these stars to make parties with these honorary people or the police that they go out and they're killing our people. I think that my feeling is that for you to please listen to all of the community. Those millions of dollars that you're giving to them, you can spread it out here within all of this community here, all of this community, because they have lots of needs. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Arnab is next, followed by Teresa, online.
Hello, my name is Arnab Kabir from District 9, and I am honored to be here after circling the area for about half an hour looking for parking that I thought was free. It's not. To establish a bit of my own credibility, I would like to mention that I have worked with the homelessness over the past couple of years in the Phoenix, Tempe, and Mesa area, and have delivered so much food that, legally speaking, my car can be legally described as a bowl of soup under FDA guidelines. I oppose the budget, and in particular the $27 million that is being allocated to the police. If the police were effective, we wouldn't see so much organized dissent in this council room. If the police were fair, we wouldn't see so much organized dissent primarily composed of minority populations. The minority is disproportionately composing the impoverished individuals, and after the dissolution of the area known as the zone, there needs to be more funding to providing to these minority populations and the impoverished. We need more water stations. The distance between them is simply too great. I used to condemn jaywalking until I realized that that 1 second of time saved can save you from heat stroke, though they have no excuse over the winter. There need to be more heat relief funding. I've seen people incapacitated from heat stroke, and no one else seems to care that much about actually helping those people who are incapacitated. The police don't need more money. And to end off, I would like to bring up a bit about the discussion on Phoenix being remodeled. I would like to say that let Phoenix be reborn in the comforting warmth of the community, not the scorching heat of violence. Let Phoenix be reborn again. Don't clip its wings. Thank you.
Teresa is next, followed by Anna.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to comment for this additional funding I'd like to see in the budget. Legal counsel for individuals facing eviction. Another fire truck for Station 33. Chief Walker last week said one more truck can make the difference in responding. He suggested for this station that is ready for one. I asked for housing support for the permanent housing of low-income residents. I'm asking you to look at the human services, the fund that helps people that can't pay their electric bills. We are struggling to pay our prescription. Don't make people have to make a choice. Is it more important, medication or air conditioned? I asked for the homeless reach out, behavioral health and substance struggles, for them to reach out and add care to Phoenix Care. For the homeless shelter, there is a significant growth in people in this valley. There's a huge need for the homeless to have full-time shelters. I would like to ask CAS funding. And also there needs to be more vans with employees that can go out and help these people that need to find resources. The homeless need your help. I recommend that you find funding or you take part of the $80 million. I get it, save. And we do need to save, but take 5% to help the homeless. The people don't want people living on the street. What they want is to restart to live in dignity and respect. Please help these people. Let's have less people dying on our streets this summer because you can make a difference. Let's let the city of Phoenix come together and shine again.
Anna is next, followed by Rebecca.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Anna, and I am recently graduated ASU student living in Tempe. I want to speak today about the city's budget. I acknowledge that I elected to support this budget when registering for this meeting. However, I now reject this and oppose the current budget. Closer examination of the agenda document revealed that the allocation of these funds is misleading and unfair. $27 million of the general fund was added to the police despite claims of there being no money for services that actually help communities and keep them safe. As in, the city is only adding 5 new water stations and expanding heat relief hours at limited locations. This is fully inadequate. This will not be enough to protect people from the extreme heat of the summer, heat that will only get worse. That will make investments in accessible water wholly worthwhile. I ask that the city take $27 million away from the police and invest that money into more drinking fountains and expand hours of heat relief until 10 p.m. for all locations. And I ask that the city expand and permanently fund legal support for people facing evictions. People need investments into their wellness. We do not need more police and expanded police power. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca is next, followed by Miros.
My name is Rebecca Denis. I live in District 7. While I am grateful to see so many programs and services the community fought for being funded or expanded, the reality is that there is simply not enough investment into these services. It's especially disappointing to see that many of these investments aren't coming from the general fund, but instead are being funded by special revenue streams like grant funds. Those funds aren't sustainable, and we can't rely on special revenue to fund critical services and resources we deserve as a community. Yet you found $27 million from the general fund for a deadly police department that hasn't been accountable and doesn't have to be accountable for the harm they cause because you don't hold them accountable. Stop giving the police our money our community needs to be holistically safe and healthy. Those $27 million need to be diverted back into other city departments that directly address the most urgent needs and to improve the long-term health and quality of life of our community. If in fact the city keeps the $80 million in a reserve, then I am demanding that none of that money go to the police in the next fiscal year either. Expand and permanently fund the emergency eviction legal services program. 5 new water stations is not enough. Heat relief stations need to all be open till 10 p.m. and we need more of them. Every park in every city must have working and accessible drinking fountains, and we need more heat relief locations. And, I have a disabled mother since I was 3 years old. 3 years old is the age when I first had to call 911. I'm 34. I'll be 34 this year. I've had to call 911 many times throughout my life, too many to count, while I watched my mom be unconscious or go through really intense medical processes. I've been out in public at the movie theater when I've had to call 911. 9 minutes is what firefighters are saying is the response time. That's a long time. That's critical for my mom 2 years ago when she was in septic shock and they had to call 911. I don't know how many minutes it took for them to get there, but I can tell you 911 when you're in renal failure is a long time. I'm shocked firefighters aren't getting more money. It's a slap in the face to them. It's a slap in the face to our community. This is a disgrace. Shame on you.
Our final speaker will be Miros.
Hello to all council members. My name is Miros. I'm a resident in District 6. I'm opposed to this budget. I'm also angry to see that our city has added an additional $27 million from the general fund to the police. Like it was expressed before, months before, you've lied to us by telling us that there weren't enough funds for demands for services to keep our communities healthy and safe. How is it that weeks later the city finds these funds and provides them to the police? Why is it that the city only added these 5 water stations with limited hours? The sun's out longer than the hours you proposed. The heat's going to increase. How many lives does it take for y'all to understand that the access to water, to basic needs, is a human right, and that every park should have water fountains? On top of that, that the heat relief location hours, they have to be expanded past 10 o'clock. Keep these services in mind, and also what is happening in our city. We have higher rates in evictions. We demand that the expansion and permanent for the funds for the emergency eviction program. These are demands that should enhance and will enhance the well-being of our community. And we ask you to not ignore that our lives are being lost because of the heat. Do not ignore the housing crisis we're facing. And this budget that you're presenting is disappointing. In addition, as well to this meeting, it is extremely frustrating. We've talked about how the time is not accessible to people, but in addition, Spanish-speaking individuals are present in your meetings, especially those that are residents in Maryville. It is disappointing to see that you do not provide the adequate interpretation services for people to truly express themselves and how they feel and what, again, these are community members. They're telling you what they need.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Any comments from council members?
But it's you know,
I need to hear this.
exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for that important update, Amber, and all of the public comments. Councilwoman Pastor.
Yes. I would like to know what's the cost for the water stations?
Mayor and council, I think we have Deputy City Manager John Chan who's coming to the table to answer that question.
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, Michael Hammett with the Office of Innovation has been working on the pilot water station project that was funded last year, and he can talk about the cost.
Mayor, Councilwoman, the cost is about $8,500 a piece, and then install would be between $15,000 and $25,000.
Approximately $30,000 for complete installation.
That's correct.
So how much money did we dedicate to this special project?
Councilwoman, we utilized the innovation fund that was approved by council during the last budget cycle. And so currently we have 5 units that have been procured with the current fiscal year budget.
Okay, so then I'm going to go 150,000 was meant for the stations, or what was the cost? I mean, I know what the cost is. I'm asking how much money did we allocate specifically for this piece?
This we had about $100,000 for our innovation fund budget. This was a pilot project, and the idea was to identify new technologies that we could test and validate that we could use to move and expand throughout the city. So it started in downtown Phoenix, and we used data to direct our efforts. And we had the first, we've got 2 units installed so far, and 3 have been procured. So that would be utilizing that original $100,000.
Okay, so I need clarity. Is it 5 that we are going to place with the 100,000, or is it going to be also 2 more, 7?
Yes, we have funding for this next fiscal year that will be continuing to move this along as we identify locations. So it started with the original in this fiscal year budget, the 5, and then we've already got ideas for 2 more in the downtown Phoenix area, and including grant funding that we've been applying for.
Okay, so what it sounds like is that this pilot program is being centered around downtown. And go ahead.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman. Yes, it did start in downtown Phoenix, and we did surveying, we did community surveying and business surveying, and so we used that to direct our efforts to start with. And some of what we found was near public buildings, near transit, in high-density areas. And also we used heat data from the heat office to look at where the calls for service were during the last summer's extreme heat. And so some of that was the tool that we created with the different data sets, which identified this location to start. And a key part of this program, the maintenance and upkeep of the systems, was #1 of those who we surveyed, and we found a great partner in downtown Phoenix, Inc., to help us pilot that, and with the idea that we would find other partners like DPI in places like Maryvale, in South Central Phoenix, and other areas that we could continue to move this project forward.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there are 7 areas that have been identified. It costs approximately 150,000. That right now you are applying for grants to then use the heat data and call for services as to where the demands are throughout the city. Is that
Correct, with starting from the downtown core and then to build the network out from downtown so that it would be viable and sustainable as we move it through other areas of the city. And Councilwoman, we have applied for other grants. We applied for infrastructure funding in Maryvale. That was not successful, but we're looking for additional, as well as areas around the southern part of our downtown. And we also just recently applied for a Gila River Indian Community Grant as well for about $280,000. That would be utilized in various areas of the city.
okay? Thank you. Appreciate it. I guess my concern is really is heat deaths, and I understand that for me, I think about these 7 that only cost 150,000. I would like to see, if not in this budget, but I would like to see how we can add additional fountains throughout the city, and be able then to use some ARPA dollars to be able to add this and spread it out to the city, and then eventually get it into the general fund to continue to add these type of fountains. We need shade and heat relief. We know that. We went through it last summer. Every one of us was desperately calling on other partners and municipalities to help us lift what we were lifting last summer, and we know what we're going to face. And I feel it, and the community did come out to our budget hearings to discuss these things. And so I know we have 80 million, but I also think that we can look at possibly, I don't know what the right term is, Amber, but at the end of the year fund of possibly saying, okay, we have this type of money and to go towards this effort. I think it's important. We're responsible at the end of the day for all of this. So those are my comments regarding the budget. Can somebody explain the 27 million?
Mayor, members of the council, I'll start and then I'll let Amber jump in. If you recall back in February when we walked you through the multi-year forecast, we talked to you about a multitude of things that were putting additional pressure on the general fund budget. Primarily leading amongst those was the class and comp study that we initiated for our employees. At that time, we explained to you that that was putting upward pressure on the general fund budget for fiscal year 24-25 of about $52 million. We also talked to you about the upward pressure that we faced because of pension from 23-24 to 24-25. That was about $30 million. We also talked to you about the significant increase in the cost of vehicles that we have to buy throughout the entirety of the city, not just in police and fire. I believe those were about $19 million. So in this budget, overall, from year to year, our general fund budget, as Amber has written in the report, is up about 3.5%. That is the same 3.5% that is represented within that police department $27 million that folks are talking about. That same percentage would more than likely be evident across pretty much all city departments when you look at them from Schedule 3, Schedule 4, or Schedule 5 in our budget document. The other thing that I would add, some folks had referenced, in particular, the fire department going down. The primary reason that the fire department budget is going down is because as we saw the rain clouds ahead, as we talked about that multi-year forecast, we used one-time funds, capital excise tax funds, to buy fire vehicles for the next 2 fiscal years. So fiscal year 24-25 and fiscal year 25-26, we will be using capital funds to buy about $21 million per year in fire vehicles. We can use capital funds in fire primarily because those are large assets that have a useful life that exceeds 7 to 10 years. So that is why the fire department budget is down. It's really an anomaly. It would otherwise be up just like the police department and all other departments. With that, I'll turn it over to Amber to see if she'd like to add anything additional.
Spoken like a true former budget director. I was thinking the same thing. There's a man who knows his numbers. Does the budget include funds for participatory budgets, which each council district or each elected official could use if they wanted more water fountains in their council district?
Mayor, members of the council, yes, each council district does have their own individual participatory budgets, as well as yourself. We will also be going through another exercise at the end of June as we start to do our final reallocation of ARPA dollars. That could theoretically also be another source of adding additional water stations.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Galindo Elvira.
And
Thank
just-
you.
oh,
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry.
Mayor. Is it okay?
No, I didn't.
We will go to the
Thank you.
vice mayor
Pointed this way,
next.
I was,
That's okay. If you'd like to go first, I would definitely defer to the lady.
okay. Just a quick follow-up question. So in our parks, we have about 385 water fountains. How many of those are chilled? I can't recall. I know it's in the
Yes,
staff
it's actually in your
report
packet,
somewhere.
Councilwoman, and I'm glad, you actually quoted the number almost exact, so 384 water fountains in our park systems. Roughly 71% or 290 of those are chilled.
And then, of course, all of our public buildings are required to have water fountains.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to shed some light on the conversation regarding the water stations. The first week that I took office was also the District 7 budget hearing, and I did hear the concerns expressed by many of the residents on the need for chilled water stations. In fact, it's the number 2 item that was requested during the budget hearings. And the District 7 office has already began a conversation with the Office of Innovation to develop a strategy on how we can ensure and try and capture more dollars to add water cooling stations throughout the city, specifically. Well, for me, I was advocating, of course, for District 7, but that's not the only district that exists in the city. So it is something that we've started to do, and it's something that we will continue to strategize about in terms of finding those funds, which we know already the device is $8,500, but there's also the needed component of knowing the environmental placement of the devices because of the harsh sun in Arizona. So there needs to be some qualifying strategies around it, like where the shade is. The other component is ensuring that there's high traffic area to care for the water fountain, because the current partner with the downtown area, they clean the water fountains as well as care for them to make sure that they are not being vandalized. So all of those things are being taken into account, and I'd be more than happy once we have a better strategy and an idea to share that with the mayor and council.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just have a clarifying question, Jeff. So we have the $25,000 that gets given to our office, but I thought I heard that each station with installation and all is $30,000. Is that?
Yeah, Mr. Hammett said that each water station's about $8,500, and then you have about $15,000 worth of installation cost on there. So round up about 30 grand. So you couldn't use your entire participatory budget to do one station, but you do have other discretionary funds within your budget that you could theoretically add and augment and supplement that to get to that
Right.
number.
But just to be clear, we probably, because when we hear 8,500, then when people start doing the math, it's like, oh, you could do 3. But we could do probably 1 and then have to use money from other places
From
to
your
cover the
district
rest.
budget,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it would just depend how far you're taking the water from. If there is
existing
a public place that already has a water source on site, the cost is lower. If you are moving water a significant distance, the cost is higher.
And Mayor Gallego, that's exactly correct. And what we're finding is we're looking for ideal locations where you can maximize the investment. And it can be, if you have a system that's, say you're replacing a just regular water fountain that's not chilled, if you've got an access to electricity, you can place it there and you have the sewer system as well as the water line, and the costs are much more minimal for that. So we can help with that. And part of what we're doing is making sure that we're looking at all aspects, as was discussed by the Councilman, about heat mitigation and also the upkeep. We want to make sure that they're in a place. We have heat mitigation technologies that are helping to preserve the chiller system so you don't have to replace it more than every possibly 3 to 5 years. So we're looking at all of that this summer through evaluation.
Makes good sense, and it seems like there might be potentials to partner with school districts or other places that already have some infrastructure and activation in place. Wonderful. Also important to note, we have heard from a lot of people that budgets are tight right now, that our citizens are feeling stretched. This budget lowers the tax rate, so it is a fiscally responsible step in that way. Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
I also wanted to just chime in on when I heard the testimony, it makes me feel that many people don't know about the city's tenant eviction assistance program. We actually did some insights, some data on that at the March Subcommittee for Economic Development and Housing. And one of the things the committee did ask, and I, part of the committee, did ask them to go back and look to see if we needed to change our, if there was additional funding that we could seek out for to strengthen that program and to extend it further. But we have invested as a city about almost $3.7 million in that program, and it's expected to at least last through December. But I've also shared and asked our city manager if there's any possible additional ARPA reallocations that can be done to fund that program even further if the need arises. I just wanted to take the opportunity to stress that we do have that resource available, and I'm continuing to ask for additional funding to be placed in it so that we can ensure that our residents have a resource. As a lawyer, I recognize many times when dealing with evictions, it's best to have, it's usually more helpful if you have someone who can speak that legal jargon representing you. So I just encourage individuals that are facing those situations to check out the city's assistance program. So I just want to take a minute to say that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Amber and the budget team, for the important update. This is not for a vote today. So we'll give the current team of second to step away, and then we will move to item number 2, which is a very exciting item, Sky Harbor capacity planning. All right, item number 2, Phoenix Sky Harbor. This is an exciting one. Our airport has been hitting all sorts of new milestones. We recently released the announcement, $44 billion in economic impact. The Wall Street Journal has called us the #1 large airport in the country, and the good news just keeps coming. We have so many businesses that partner with us at Sky Harbor, families who make their livings there, people who reconnect with their loved ones, a lot of exciting activity, and the airport is busier than ever. I will turn it over to Mario Paniagua to introduce this item.
Thank you so much, Mayor and members of the council. This is exciting. It's very exciting to talk about what's going on at the airport. What's happening at Sky Harbor is truly remarkable, what's been happening over the last few years. Growth is beyond expectations. Performance and customer experience remain at the highest levels. The accolades, as you mentioned, keep coming in. The staff at the airport are extraordinarily successful. Led by Airport Services Director Chad Makowski and his team, the Phoenix Airport System is doing an outstanding job. Mayor, you mentioned the $44 billion of economic impact benefiting our city and our region and our state. A fun fact that may be a Jeopardy question someday is that $44 billion is higher than the whole gross domestic product of an entire state. Granted, that state is one of our smaller states, the state of Vermont, but still a big deal. That's 650,000 people and 9,000 square miles in that state, and that's what the Phoenix Airport does for Arizona. We're a compact airport located conveniently in the city, in the heart of the city, and we wear that identity very, very well. In 2022, based on takeoffs and landings, we were the busiest 3-runway airport in the world, and that's a big deal. In 2023, the number of takeoffs and landings is going to grew by more than 8%. So we just continue to grow, and we're so busy at the airport. The airport is an incredible community asset, and we're here today to discuss with you how we're proposing to ensure Sky Harbor keeps performing at that high level for the decades to come. So I will turn it over to Chad Makovsky to introduce his team to tell you more.
Thank you, Mario. Mayor, Council, Mayor Mario, I think you did my work for me. I don't know that there's much more I could do in the way of an introduction. Thank you so much, and we're humbled to be here today to talk to you about the work we're doing at Sky Harbor, some of the successes, but also some of the challenges that we'll be facing over the coming period of time. And I'd like to start by just acknowledging and just my extraordinary pride for the services that our amazing team provides to our diverse and growing community. And we're especially proud of the awards and recognition that we've received for delivering a high level of service for the traveling public. We recognize we're the first and last impression of so many who come to our amazing city and our great state. And that includes being named #1 in the Wall Street Journal as the best large hub airport. And this is not the first time, this is the second time in recent history that we've received this prestigious recognition. However, we can't rest on our laurels. If you've traveled recently, I'm sure you've seen that Sky Harbor Boulevard is becoming a bit more congested. Our Phoenix SkyTrain is filling up, serving more than 40,000 passengers and employees every day. And our passenger terminals are getting significantly more congested as we've experienced near double-digit growth rates over the past couple of years. And we're expecting more of that to come over the next year or two. Mario had mentioned that we're the busiest 3-runway airport in the world. Another fun fact is if you actually look at our takeoffs and landings across our 3 runways and you kind of do the math, that means about 1 plane every minute is either taking off or landing at our airport every minute of the day, every day of the week, every week of the year. So thanks to your leadership and the guidance that we've received from our Phoenix Aviation Advisory Board, over the short term, we'll be investing more than $3.5 billion over the next 6 years, which amounts to, it's really a staggering number when you start talking about billions. It amounts to roughly $1.6 million in investment every single day over the next 6 years to really maintain and modernize our aging infrastructure as we work to keep pace with dramatic growth. And I think it's important to mention, too, that in our department, we are an enterprise fund department of the city, which means that no local taxpayer dollars are used to invest in our airport system. When you use the services of our airport, the money that you invest when you spend, whether it's to park at the airport, to buy the ticket to fly in that airplane, those are the funds that we're using to invest in our airports to support our community. However, we need to start some important additional work, not only in the near term, but over the long term to ensure that we are prepared for what comes next. And with me today are Assistant Aviation Director Jay DeWitt and Deputy Aviation Director Jordan Feld. Jay is going to provide you all with a sense of some of the trends that we're seeing and experiencing at our airport. And then Jordan's going to talk about how those trends are leading to some unique challenges for our airport, and then ultimately what we plan to do to address those challenges. And so I'd be happy to turn the presentation over to Jay.
Thanks, Chad. Mayor, members of the City Council, glad to be here with you today. And in addition to the first trend that Chad talked about is we've reached record growth. 2023 was our busiest year ever. And I'll give you, I don't want to keep you in suspense, the trends are good. All of them are quite good. So I'm going to start with the second one, and that is the number of new locations that we're flying to. So as passenger traffic recovered since the pandemic, we've seen strong growth in new nonstop domestic and international routes. With 144 markets, 25 of which are international, we've never served more destinations in Sky Harbor's history than we do today, and that's remarkable. One of those more remarkable routes that we've got picked up recently is to Paris on Air France, and we expect more key nonstop destinations as Phoenix's economy continues to grow and diversify. As you'll note in this graph, passenger traffic has grown and generally kept pace with population growth in Maricopa County. You see Maricopa County there in that orange line on top, and the blue bars represent employments at Sky Harbor. Some of the effects of the pandemic on travel are evident in the drop in passenger traffic beginning in 2020. However, Phoenix recovered much quicker than most U.S. airports, and employment numbers largely returned in 2022 and achieved that new record in 2023. Looking ahead, the airlines are anticipating big increases in passenger traffic in 2024 and 25. You see they're about 10% each year in 24 and 25. And after which we project traffic will continue to grow at a more measured rate, consistent with the past 20 years, about 2% per year. Now, while we've all been watching the airport's passenger numbers grow, an important underlying change in the passenger type has been quietly developing over the past 8 years. This graph shows origin and destination, also known as O&D traffic in blue, and connecting traffic in gray. O&D passengers either originate here in Phoenix or are flying here as their destination. Connecting passengers, on the other hand, never leave the terminal, and they connect from one gate to another. You'll note that the O&D and connecting split at Sky Harbor was pretty consistent at around 60% between 2010 and 2015, and it goes toggles between 58 and 59%, but generally consistent, about 60% O&D and 40% connecting. And traffic numbers increased over that period, but that ratio remained fairly steady through those years. And this actually goes back about 20 years. This is a very, very reliable metric as you go across our airport over the years. However, in 2016, you can see that O&D start to grow steadily from 61% to 70% to 71%, so very consistent over the last several years to 23 at 73% O&D. And we expect, in fact, we're on track right now to about 75% in 2024. Now, this is important because O&D passengers rent cars, they park in our garages, they take taxis and ride shares to hotels and other destinations throughout the valley. And once here, visiting passengers have a tremendous impact on our economy. And getting to that ASU impact study, the impact of growing passengers numbers are increased O&D traffic is reflected in that ASU study. And the airport in Phoenix metro area, since the last update in 2016, this total economic impact has increased from $38 billion to $44.3 billion. And the economic benefits of O&D passengers are substantial, but a strong O&D base also brings other benefits to the airport. Another chart. This graph shows all of the 31 large hubs in the United States and their respective O&D percentage. Generally, airports with high O&D percentage fall at the right end of this graph, benefit from a more diverse mix of airline carriers and a higher degree of operational stability. Note Phoenix's historical position at 60% there on the yellow in the left end of that graph. And looking to today, you see that Phoenix moves toward the middle of that group of large hub airports, as its growth in O&D passengers has contributed to more stability for the airport and greater economic impact for the community. Our final trend is a national one, as airports across the county and across the country are experiencing similar needs to build new terminals and make unprecedented investments in their airports. Mr. Feld will now discuss some of the current challenges these trends are contributing to, as well as the proposed solutions.
Thank you, Jay. Mayor, council members, appreciate the opportunity. So in terms of challenges, a lot of our key facilities are getting older, right? Terminal 4 came on board in 1990, and you can think about all the kind of industry changes and norms around traveling since that time. So to begin with, the terminal facilities that we have were more or less designed for a plane on the smaller side relative to what we have today. The load factor, in other words, the percentage of seats full on that plane was obviously much smaller than you would experience today. There's no extra seat to put your purse on, in between you and the next person now. So all of these people and these larger planes are creating a lot of demand on our facilities. In our peak periods, it's not uncommon to see pictures like this. We're just coming out of March, was typically our peak month. So this is what you would experience in our concourses or waiting in line for some of our retail amenities. And even outside of the concourses, and this is really key, what the airport planners call the processing function. So the curb, the security, the bag claim, things like that, those facilities are experience higher levels of demand than what they were necessarily planned or designed for. So we're familiar with the comprehensive asset management plan that we talked about a few years ago, the master plan for the airport, and forecasting growth and how that relates to expectations for facility performance. We recently brought in aviation consultants to help us kind of revisit some of those presumptions about the forecast and where we're at today with our facilities. And so the good news is, at least in the next couple years, our terminal capacity is probably okay. So what you're looking at here is a map of Terminal 3 and Terminal 4. The red is Terminal 3, the gray Terminal 4. And you can see we're also adding a couple of aircraft positioned just west of Terminal 3 that would be accommodated through what we call a hard stand operation. So a co-bus or a bus that's specific to airport terminal mobility or access would take passengers from Terminal 3 to those gates, those hard stands. So with some investments we'll talk about in a second here in the near term, we're probably okay through the near term in terms of terminal capacity. But as we look out to the end of the camp planning horizon, camp looked out 20 years, you can see that by 2038, we're actually exceeding our capacity. So we're turning away business at that point. And most importantly for our customers, at the point we're turning away business, our level of service, the experiential value of Sky Harbor has diminished by that point. So we really never want to get to that theoretical point where we're turning away business, where our capacity can't keep up with demand. So probably the most complicated chart we'll ever show the council. This is a heat map, or heat chart, I should say, focusing on really not the concourses, but kind of the processing function of the terminal. So again, bag check, security, things like that. And what you're seeing on this chart are the various key functions like check-in and baggage claim. And you can also see that the heat gradients actually change over time. So you can, for example, the check-in facility starting to reach yellow by 2025, but then there's an investment or an improvement in the infrastructure, some change that the airport's planning to invest in to make that takes it back to the green. And so we generally want to be in the green, but you can see even with those gradient changes, eventually we're getting to yellow or red. So just to walk through that, the decentralized check-in investments we plan to make in the near term will help check-in. The new and expanded baggage claim facilities, again, in the near term, will change that from yellow to green. And so over the next 4 to 5 years, we plan to invest $400 million in our terminal facilities to try to keep us in the green. But again, even with that investment, around 2038, you can see most of these key facilities are in the yellow or approaching red, and that's what we want to avoid. That's really why we're here today, to kind of talk about how do we get in front of that. Another challenge we have is with airspace and airfield capacity. Before people start to focus on that comment, not so much in the sense that we need a fourth runway. We do not. Our operations forecasts going out beyond 20 years never sees the operation levels at the airport going above our maximum annual service volume, or what planner nerds, that's the term for airfield capacity. So we never get to that point, but there's always room for better airfield efficiency. So our crossfield taxiway that we're working on now is a good investment for airfield efficiency. Another thing we've talked about more recently is in 2021, the FAA changed some rules about aircraft departing in hot days. And essentially the FAA rule says that pilots must request the longest runway to depart on a hot day. The FAA is in Washington, D.C. They think a hot day is 105 degrees. So Phoenix has its fair share of hot days where aircraft are asking to use the north runway, which is great, except for the center runway is designed for departures. The north runway is for landings. So the first challenge with it is it creates delay in the airspace. Delay in the airspace means more aircraft waiting to land. So there's some off-airport problems with that and air quality issues with that. And more importantly, the weird red line that we drew around the airport here is actually our 65 DNL day-night average noise contour. And that is the regulatory contour, the high noise area. And what we always want to do is make sure we're not really changing the geometry of that line for the worse. We're not shifting it in some way. And over time, more aircraft departing off that north runway will affect a change in that contour general shape and could create noise exposures in parts of the community that don't necessarily have it today. And so that's a challenge we want to avoid. So to solve some of these issues, or to try to solve for some of these issues, as I talked about, significant investments in our terminal facilities, a crossfield taxiway. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about the center runway and what we can do with that to avoid aircraft using the north runway. So these are some of the near-term things we're working on. One of the things, again, we talked about more recently was by simply extending the runway to match the length of the north runway, we can avoid this growing challenge we're going to have of aircraft trying to use the north runway for departures. In terms of terminal facilities, we're working on T3 and 2 right now with the post-security connections. That will be a major benefit to some of our terminal capacity challenges. But again, it won't solve for a lot of those processor issues, the baggage claim, the security. So that's really where the Future West Terminal kind of saves the day. And so you're seeing a concept map of that West Terminal from the 2019 camp. And it's conceptual. So the specific layout and the number of gates and those things will kind of be determined as we refine the design. But the West Terminal is designed very much like Terminal 4 with a split roadway system. And the gate capacity is going to be somewhere in between 40 to 50 to over 60, depending on how it's configured and whether or not we're seeing a lot of wide-body aircraft in 10 years or the split of narrow body and wide body. So those things will come. This is a kind of graphical representation of the West Terminal. Imagine you're standing above Terminal 3 looking to the west, and you can see the general layout of the piers, the roadway system, and the processor, the terminal. This is not specifically the design of the terminal. Again, I can't emphasize that point enough that we don't know that today. The crystal ball is not that good. But in terms of kind of looking out in the future and industry trends with terminal design, this is kind of the state of the art, and we're always striving to be a world-class airport with world-class facilities. So things like sustainability and comfort within the terminals will be key to this. A big part of this will be efficiency in terms of designing and building the facility. We're going to need a terminal approach that allows us to be flexible and modular, add space where we need space, kind of react to what the market is doing in terms of the industry. So that will be key to this. That will give us flexibility. Sustainability, obviously, low impact to the environment, trying to use local materials, local restaurants, local labor. All of these things are important, incorporating technology. And then access, and we can think about access in multiple dimensions. The Future West Terminal will be critical to international travel with customs facilities, more parking, garage space, more transit access through SkyTrain, so things like that. The bad news is these things don't exactly happen overnight. So there is quite a lengthy FAA, Federal Aviation Administration process we need to go through. So we're currently working on the airport layout plan, which is like the regulatory map for the airport that the FAA approves, to add the center runway extension. We think we'll be able to complete that in this calendar year. And then next year, we'll begin to work on some of the pre-environmental documents that the FAA requires. But sometime in 2025, we'll start the NEPA EIS, the National Environmental Policy Act, Environmental Impact Statement, which is a kind of long environmental process if you're used to the airport talking about environmental assessments for major projects that we can normally complete in about 2 years. EIS is more like a 5-year process, which has substantially more public involvement and community meetings and just scrutiny in terms of environmental consequences and how that kind of adds up to the ultimate finding by the FAA. Another quick thing to note about it is, unlike other types of NEPA things that we would manage. The FAA actually manages the EIS process. Another reason why it takes a bit longer than perhaps we've discussed in the past with other environmental documents. So finally, we get through that process, and by 2032, we're able to kind of complete our design and begin construction. Obviously, the construction process will take a few years, and that's how we get to 2037, 2038. So it seems a long way off, but in government airport planning time, it's actually very, very near on the horizon. So with that, I'll turn it back to Mr. Murkowski.
Thanks, Jordan, and I appreciate your comments. Mayor and Council, what I wanted to kind of close with is by sharing that this is a bit of a crystal ball decision that we needed to make, right? We don't want to build facilities that sit empty, but we don't want to wait and then find out we have demand that exceeds our ability to plan for and build the facilities that our community needs. So we believe it's really important to get this process started now. I would much rather do it now in a kind of a phased approach. We can always slow down that process if our airlines or any other entity, or we have another industry event that slows down our growth for whatever reason. We can always pause, but we can't get that time back. So I can't delay and get the time back if I don't start now. So that's why we're here today, is to make sure you all are supportive and comfortable with our plan and our approach. And we'd love to get your feedback. We're going to obviously work very closely with our federal agencies, FAA, TSA, Customs. We're going to work very closely with our business partners at the airport, including our airlines, our concessionaires, and all the people that make our airport work, to make sure that we time this appropriately. So with that, I just say our future is bright at Sky Harbor, and we're really excited to be here today to share this news with you. We look forward to your feedback, and we're happy to take your questions at this time. Thank you.
Fabulous, thank you. In talking with our residents, there has been so much enthusiasm for us to get to work on the new West Terminal. It's very exciting news. We do have 2 residents here for public comment, so I'll begin with that. Is Cecilia Ortiz with us? All right, followed by Eric Nielsen.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Cecilia Ortiz, and I'm a passenger service agent at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. I am living with a heart illness. I'm with congestive heart failure. I'm also working with that disability. I love my job assisting passengers with disabilities travel through the airport. It's an important job, a very important job, and one that is essential to the function of the airport. But I often rely on tips from these passengers to make ends meet. That's an issue. I wish I was paid enough to make ends meet without relying on tips from passengers, but that's not the case right now. That's obviously an issue. I just recently learned that the CEO of American Airlines is paid $15,000 an hour, while I'm struggling on $16 an hour. It really shouldn't be that way. That's an issue and a challenge. As the City of Phoenix plans on investing billions of our public dollars into expanding our airport, I am calling on you to make sure our tax dollars go to lift up the whole Phoenix community. We can't let big airlines and corporations cash in, while working people like myself and the communities that you all represent, while working people like us are struggling on poverty wages, and passengers with disabilities are expected to help subsidize my wages. Airport jobs should be good, union jobs that pay living wages, provide benefits like affordable health care, and protect us from hazardous conditions. We have an opportunity here in Phoenix to end poverty wages for the Black, brown, and immigrant-powered airport workforce, and lift up the economy for communities surrounding the airport. I'm proud to be here with a coalition of working people from across the city who are united and determined to win a future for our families and our community
Thank you so much for that testimony. We'll now go to council member testimony, as we've had the other speaker, Eric, has departed. We'll start with our Economic Development Chairman, Kevin Robinson.
Mayor, thank you very much. You know, I want to make a comment about something, then put something out there for consideration, obviously further down the road. But Chad, I will tell you, and you and I have had this conversation, I have the privilege and opportunity to travel a great deal. And Sky Harbor has always been, and I say this with, you know, with firsthand knowledge, it's just one of the best airports I've ever been in. When we travel overseas or wherever it happens to be, it truly is a friendly airport, easy to get around, get through, and everything else, so I truly appreciate that. That having been said, looking at the plans for the future Sky Harbor Airport and the conceptual slide that you showed of the west, of what would be the west terminal, clearly what does happen is it does away with the executive terminal, currently the Ragsdale Executive Terminal, which is currently the police station and such. One thing I would like to put out there for my colleagues to consider and for all of us to consider, right now, Terminal 4 is named after Barry Goldwater, Terminal 3 after John McCain, both military men, both aviators, both men who serve their communities, their country. And we will have an opportunity to name the West Terminal or whatever it's going to be. I want to put out there the name of Lincoln Ragsdale, because currently the Executive Terminal is named after Lincoln Ragsdale. And for those who don't know who he is, he was a Tuskegee Airman, fought in World War II. He was active here in the Phoenix community from a civil rights standpoint, from a community standpoint, all the things that you would want, all the things you would be proud to have a building named after someone. So I will plant that now. It's something that I've had an opportunity to mention to Chad in the past. It's something that a lot of folks in the community have approached me about it and wondering what will happen once the airport starts to expand, what will happen to the current executive terminal. But I think it would be in keeping with a pattern that we have with naming the terminals and considering Lincoln Ragsdale. So I put that out there. Mayor, thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. It would be so powerful to have a terminal named for a civil rights leader and Tuskegee Airmen. We'll go next to Councilwoman Hodge Washington, and then Councilman Waring, and then Councilwoman Guardado.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to also kind of echo a piggyback off of Kevin's comments. I do think that Lincoln Ragsdale was a pillar in our community, and I think that would be an awesome honor for him. In addition to his service on the Tuskegee, as a Tuskegee Airman, he's also as a philanthropist. He has done quite a bit to our community, and I'm a bit biased. He's considered one of the East Lake legends, so I definitely would like to see us consider Mr. Ragsdale in a name and honor when that time becomes appropriate. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Waring, followed by Councilman Guardado.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this was part of your speech, and I think that was the thing that got mentioned to me the most after the speech. People were really fired up about this. People, frankly, don't normally follow political speeches. We're bringing up the new terminal. You know, generally speaking, people, including myself, I would echo Kevin's comments about the quality of service and what I see. I don't fly a whole lot, but you know, I think having just had the opportunity to compare it to, say, O'Hare, this is definitely better. My fear when you looked at, yes, Jordan, it was an overly complicated chart, but I think I got the gist of it. If we don't do anything about 2040, you know, we're not going to have a functional airport potentially, and that's obviously not acceptable to any of us. It seems like a long time, but really time flies. So I get what you're saying. I'm not surprised it's going to take the FAA a while to sort all this out. It took them 118 years of airplane flight to realize on hot days you need a longer runway. So I guess we should give them some dispensation for that. Having worked with the FAA, most of you guys missed that opportunity earlier in my tenure on the council. Count your lucky stars if you never have to talk to them. But I wish you guys well with that, but you are absolutely right. Start that process early. You guys do need to hire a publicist on the city council, and I think I found out you were the #1 rated airport by reading about it in a paper copy of the Wall Street Journal. So I suggested at the time, I can't remember if I called Jeff or Chris Mackey, but I said, you know, you really should probably bump that up a little bit. I think it did get I thought it was a relatively small thing in the Arizona Republic at one point. That is the kind of thing that people should know. I think anybody who flies, to Kevin's point, would recognize the difference just from the experience level. I mean, it's night and day from what you're going to see to any airport back east, which is usually just a convoluted mess, and how do you get out of there? Trying to get to a car at O'Hare, I mean, that's just crazy if nobody's picking you up. One thing I did want to ask, we've always traditionally been in the top 10, I think it's in actual passengers. Didn't we drop out of the top 10 at one point a couple of years ago? We might have crept back in, but that was not indicative of a decrease in passenger traffic at our airport. It probably was just indicative of greater traffic elsewhere. Is that accurate?
Mayor, Councilman Waring, I'm going to ask Jay to comment on that. I did take a short 4-year leave of absence from the city of Phoenix, and Jay will be able to kind of lay that out for you.
Mayor, Councilman, yes, your memory is correct. We were in the top 10 for many, many years, and in and around, I believe it was like 2014, 15. We did fall out, not because we lost passenger traffic, because some airports, particularly Charlotte, Las Vegas, and others, really had some double-digit growth consistently over a number of years. So we're consistently in that 12, 13 range, and through the pandemic, recovered much faster than other airports throughout the country that. We were in the top 10. In fact, there were days when we were the busiest airport in the country through the pandemic. And it's attributable to the resilience of this of our economy, the community that we have to support the airport.
Mayor, I will also say one of Sky Harbor's charms is it's not either impossible to get out of or out in the middle of nowhere, as some big city airports are, and now you've got a huge drive once you get there, because that will frustrate your passengers. You know, they want to get to their hotel, they want to get to where they're going. When we expand, is that realistic given the SkyTrain and the airport loop and the, they're not on-ramps, but I think you know what I mean, the access points to the different freeways and surface streets? Is that all realistic if you expand the number of passengers dramatically? I know they may come anyway, but if you build another terminal, they certainly will.
Mayor and Councilman Waring, that's an excellent question, and it was a part of our Camp 2019 Airport Master Plan. We look at airport capacity, I call it 3 legs of a stool. You always look at your land side or terminal access, your ground transportation element, you look at your terminal processing element, and then you look at your airfield element. And all 3 of those elements need to come in balance. And the team, while I wasn't here in 2019, and I'm going to ask Jordan to fill in the blanks, the team did look at that element, and obviously any additional growth of the terminal, we contemplated that in the context of the realignment and the additional work we would need to do on Sky Harbor Boulevard. I do believe, and this is something we've talked to this council before about, we do have a lot of cut-through traffic that goes through our airport with no intention to either stop at the airport or pick somebody up or what have you. They just use it as a means to get from one end to the other. Oftentimes that happens when the local freeways are congested. That's going to be problematic as we move forward, and we're going to need to identify solutions. The Airport Master Plan in 2019 did identify a solution which could include security plazas or vehicle checks, things of that nature. We are not contemplating tolling, but we are contemplating other measures to help to ensure not only the security of the airport, but also that we can manage the demand for the roadways. We also, at 24th Street and 44th Street, we built these new SkyTrain stations, and the idea would be that we can decongest the core of the terminals by bringing elements of ground transportation to those SkyTrains and then move them into the core via our SkyTrain. So that's really going to be another important step to help us with decongesting the roadways and the terminal environment. Jordan?
Mr. McCoskey had a great answer, Mayor and Council, but just to reaffirm the point that the master plan does solve for those issues, there is necessary landside area to improve the I-10 off-ramps into the airport, essentially just north of the administration building, if you're familiar with the campus. Less of a challenge as it kind of goes to the east side of the 143 and the 202. But for sure, the facilities are planned for those issues. We didn't talk a lot about it during the presentation, but you may have noticed the roadway structure itself within the airport improves dramatically with the West Terminal improvement, straightening of Sky Harbor Boulevard, so some of those efficiencies are gained. And then over the next 15 years, we would presume some just efficiencies in the way personal automobiles and how people get to the airport, and that function will improve as well. So we do think we have a good plan in place to deal with those issues.
Mayor, just to that point, so I had the opportunity, I know it was March, it was your busiest time, but I picked up a friend and took him back to the airport a couple days later. I was pretty surprised. I'm trying to think of the last time I had been at the airport before that. It might have been a year. You know, I was pretty surprised at the backup of traffic going both ways. I mean, it was bumper to bumper. I hadn't really remembered that being the case. And then he was surprised when he got in the airport that it didn't seem that crowded. It wasn't, now it was March, but it wasn't, you know, it's kind of midday, it was around lunchtime, it wasn't a time that really seemed like it was overly busy inside. Is that what you're talking about, the cut through traffic? Because it was really backed up like you would expect on rush hour on the 51 or something.
Councilman, that is correct, yeah. We showed another kind of complicated, nerdy graph back in 2019 that showed at certain parts of the day the cut-through traffic can be as high as 50–60% through the terminal core area.
As someone who drives a lot in our city, maybe you can explain to me. Now, I will say, I'll preface my remarks by saying there's lots of humor behavior I observe where I'm like, whatever got in your head to make you think that was a good idea, and why would you do it again after the first time? Like, if it's backed up like that in midday, why would you do that? A lot of the freeways you can move around unfettered at that time of day, so that doesn't make any sense. Can you put up signs saying, hey dummy, you don't want to come this way, you'll sit here for a while, why don't you go on the 143 to the 202 or whatever, and save us all some aggravation? Is that it? I know we like our cute signs out in the freeways, maybe you could model that. And I mean, given what you're telling me, it doesn't make any sense. Why would a person do it more than once? I did it, what, twice, and I would never do it again unless I was going to the airport.
Councilman, great points. We actually have brought up the signage issue with MAG and Federal Highways before, so it is something they know we're interested in. Artificial intelligence and Google Maps and things like that, if you're from out of town and you ask it, what's the best way to get from point A to point B, oftentimes the mapping, the AI hasn't caught up with the exact traffic levels at that moment, and it will tell passengers or people from out of town to cut through the airport to get to one area or the other. So that's a big challenge that we've also tried to solve for, we're still working on.
Okay, Mayor, I appreciate that. I will say, at some point, deferring everything to artificial intelligence does have its perils, I guess, because I am trying to think of another city where it might even enter my brain pan. Yes, Google wants me to go right by the airport. That is a fantastic idea. I know it'll go great. But I guess maybe some of the folks aren't thinking for themselves, I guess is what you're telling me. Okay, that's frustrating, but all right. Yeah, you might want to look at that signage. And put up something like maybe a sign saying, if you come here, it's the journey of the damned or something. And thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll go next to Councilwoman Guardado, then Councilmember Galindo Elvira, then Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. I am not surprised. We are the 5th largest city in the country, and we continue to grow as a city. So, Chad, congratulations on your plan. I think this is pretty amazing. I think starting early, I think it's great. But as we're moving forward and as we're making all of these plans, you know, I just want to make sure, you know, that we remember, you know, the reasons why we are the #1 airport. And I think at some point we were the tastiest airport as well. I remember that as well. And let's just remember that that's because of the men and women, right, that make up this airport, that come in and work at this airport every single day. It is the economic engine that feeds our families, that feeds our children. And let's remember we've had many strikes at the airport lately. We've had EOD complaints filed as well. So we need to figure out like strong language that we be able to look at as we're looking into the new terminal and how we can avoid these disruptions that continue to happen. I'm very proud of the heat ordinance that we were able to pass a little bit over a month ago, but hoping that as we're looking at the plans and we're looking at what we're doing to better this terminal, that we're also looking at language that will continue to protect the workers and that will continue to protect the passengers as well, that they're not in line for an hour or 2 hours trying to get a cup of coffee just because there's no one there to serve them. But excited about the plans, excited about everything that is happening at the airport, and I think we're all in good hands with you, Chad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Gordado. One of the things I kind of glossed over, and it's not lost on me, is that I have an authorized strength of about 950 employees that help to manage all 3 of our airports in the city. As you saw on that slide, we have over 47,000 employees that work at Sky Harbor, so it takes teams of teams to make that experience successful every day, and we're very proud of the work that all of these employees do to keep our airport operational and customer experience exceptional, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Galindo Elvira.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to share my appreciation to Mario, Chad, and Matt for the really thorough briefings that you've provided me and for being patient and explaining some things to me. I think this plan is very well thought out. It's forward-looking and forward-thinking, and I think it really bottom lines what the mayor has been saying all along, that Phoenix is the future.
And Sky Harbor has been a first on so many different things, including use of technology. First where you could go through and use your phone to show your driver's license. First airport in the world with autonomous vehicles. Doing great leadership in sustainability, whether it be some of the things we've done on energy efficiency and water use, to the actions this council has taken to move forward on renewable energy. Thanks to Vice Mayor Stark and many others, we've been real leaders on accessibility. Every time she travels, she's looking for a new way to welcome everyone to our community, and our team has helped, whether it be people with visual impairment or people experiencing dementia or autism. It's their airport too, and we've worked hard to welcome all. We know travel can be very stressful, and I appreciate that we try to accommodate all the many different needs that happen at our airport. We'll go next to Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you to Chad and your teams of people who are working at the airport, but I also want to thank all the volunteers who are there to serve our airport guests as well. They are a fabulous group of people. So excited about the plans. This is amazing. Are there any plans to have a dedicated international terminal at the airport?
Mayor, Councilmember O'Brien, just given the unique domestic international mix that we have at the airport, we would not recommend a dedicated international terminal. And that's because currently international only represents about 6% of our total traffic mix. But so many of our airlines serve both domestic and international destinations at the same time. And so that's why what we're proposing is we have an international concourse at Terminal 4 today. We need to recognize the growth in international in Phoenix. And so what we intend to do is really look at an international facility in the new terminal as well. So there will be 2 terminals that have international operations within the airport.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. Appreciate it.
And we'll have some planes are getting larger and larger, including many that fly internationally. This would be built with those in mind.
Yeah, Mayor, that's correct. We would definitely make sure we have capacity for the largest aircraft that we would expect to see in our community, which is we call them Group 5, which would be the equivalent of the Boeing 747. Now it's the Airbus A350. We don't intend, based on what we're seeing in the industry, to accommodate the A380, but we could, if we needed to, on occasion, even accommodate an aircraft that size.
Wonderful, and I think we'll see a lot of advances in sustainability technology, so maybe needed to do some great innovation in that area. We have gotten so much great feedback on some of the changes we've made. Very rarely do people reach out to the city when they're happy, but the SkyTrain reductions of waits to get to the rental car center have really done that, and there are people who are just so enthusiastic. We will do everything we can to deliver this quickly because we know there's real enthusiasm. I'm working with the Secretary of Transportation on a committee that oversees or provides recommendations on project delivery, and maybe we can get things going more quickly because people are so eager for this new terminal. Councilwoman Pastor.
I really appreciate everything you've been doing because I've heard of camp for I don't know how long I've been on here, 10 years now. And the fact that we've done it in pieces and pieces and we did a great community input piece where community got together and said, can we do this? Can we do this? This is what we would like to see. And so I really appreciate the effort that was done. I also want to recognize that we are the largest economic engine within the state. And in order to us to maintain and continue, we do have to grow. And in growing means there's always growing pains. And to know that we're able to put what we have planned into play is awesome because I know with the Pacific Rail and the military and FedEx and making sure we're moving the way we're moving, making sure that we're growing and the airplanes are growing bigger, larger, wider. And so really understanding the needs of today, but also of the future is very important because we can't miss our mark because we only have so much space in this time. So I really have a lot of gratitude at the fact that this has been a long-term, ever-evolving plan to get to where we are today. I would like to see actually more increase of flights coming in. It doesn't matter wherever the demand is to see if they can hit us or stop here and then go to their next hub. But really, it's just been incredible to sit and watch it actually going to roll out in the way it's going to be. The other piece that I wanted to talk about was space for concessionaires. That's probably another area of space of concessionaires and really looking at is there adequate space? Do we need smaller space? Do we need bigger space? What do we need? Do we need kiosks? Really maximizing what we have in the plan. And then one simple request that I have, I don't know, it's not that simple probably. I've been traveling and there's a certain airport that does a really good job with women's bathrooms and having the space that they need in order to put all their bags and hooks and like little shelves within the bathroom. If we could, in the future, look at that and see when we're redesigning what we can do for that space. Thank you.
Mayor and Councilmember Pastor, we do not want to give that airport any undue publicity, but I will catch you after the meeting and find out who it was. So,
I do want to say one last thing. I grew up with Lincoln Ragsdale Jr. and his sisters, and his father was instrumental in a lot of areas of impact. And I do feel that that terminal should be named after Lincoln Ragsdale. Thank you.
All right, any additional comments? Wonderful. Well, we are so excited to get moving on the new West Terminal. Thank you for that update. We are adjourned.
Highlighted by a $10 million grant from the United States Forest Service. Investment in emergency